In Ireland, to call anyone a Roman Catholic or worse, an RC, was to insult them to the highest degree. Although they recognized the Pope as the spiritual head of the Church, the faithful of Ireland did not consider themselves to have any connection with Rome. They were first, last, and would always be Irish Catholics.
It was the religion of their fathers and their forefathers before that. It had sustained them for many years through war, pestilence and famine. It was their comfort, their protector, their only provider in a time of need and a sure guarantee of their place in the kingdom of heaven.
In their eyes, the Catholic Church was infallible, beyond reproach. Few could see it or its servants doing any wrong. If they could see it, few could speak out about it. If they had spoken out, who would have listened?
At the beginning of the 21st century, the Catholic Church no longer has the power that it once had. It is possible that it may not survive until the next century. Its congregations are getting smaller. Its churches are closing. Its religious orders are dying out, never to be replaced.
Stories of scandals and abuse that have been hidden for years have come back to haunt it. Shamefully, many of those stories have been proven beyond any shadow of a doubt. But in Ireland, there is another story, one that has never been truthfully told until now.
An article by amateur historian Catherine Corliss about the deaths of 800 young children at a children's home in Tuam, County Galway, was first published in a local history journal in 2012. But by June of 2014, it had become one of the most talked about news stories of the summer of that year, not just in Ireland, but on a global platform.
For not only had Catherine Corliss discovered their names, she had an official declaration of the age and cause of death for each child. Unable to determine the final resting places of many of those who died in that home between the years 1925 and 1961, she was horrified to come to the realization that most, if not all of them, now lay where they had been placed, in what seemed to have been a septic tank that was in use in the days when the home had been a workhouse and a military barracks.
In order to ensure that the children who died in the home would always be remembered, a committee that included Catherine Corliss was established in 2013. The committee's mission was to raise the necessary funds to erect a memorial bearing the names of every child who had perished there. When the story was published in local newspapers and elsewhere in the autumn of 2013, a considerable sum of money was donated by members of the public and by a number of organizations, which included a donation by the Sisters of the Bon Secours Order. Within a few days of publication by the Irish Mail on Sunday on May 25, 2014, this very quickly became the hottest news story of the year worldwide.
By the end of 2014, thanks to donations by well-wishers, the Graveyard Committee was overwhelmed by the generosity of so many, and not only was a large sum of money raised, the entire cost of the monument was donated by an Irish doctor, now living in Canada.
Sadly, their moment of triumph was short-lived. Catherine Corliss herself set up a group in opposition to everything that she once believed in. At the beginning of 2024, those plaques are still in storage, waiting for a day that may never come.
Before long, what should have been a story of love quickly became something much more sinister. and many with their own agendas were only too eager and more than willing to play their part in yet another great 21st century witch hunt.
In response to an international publicity frenzy, the Irish government announced on July 16, 2014, that Judge Yvonne Murphy would lead a commission of investigation into mother and baby homes, which included St Mary's Children's Home in Tuam.
The most astonishing aspect of the Tuam Children's Home scandal is the absence of fact-checking within the Irish media and others. The Associated Press, that big global news organisation, picked up on a story that was circulating in the Irish press that turned out to be false. The Associated Press withdrew it instantly, retracted that story. That same story has never been retracted by any of the Irish media organisations. They are happy to promote lies and put one lie on top of another lie. You might ask yourself, why are they doing that? We'll come back to that later. Now, the lie starts with even the name of the institution. It was called the Children's Home in Tuam, or St Mary's. The more formal name was St Mary's Children's Home Tuam, sometimes called just the Children's Home, and sometimes locally just known as the Home. It was never a mother and baby home. It was never called a mother and baby home. It had mothers and babies in it, but it was never called a mother and baby home. It was a children's home. It provided refuge for mothers and their children. That's an important point.
In the days and years following the discovery of the possible final resting place of hundreds of little children, the name Catherine Corliss has remained in the hearts and minds of many people worldwide.
She has gained notoriety as a result of her frequent appearances on television, radio, in newspaper articles, and in books written about her and about her interpretation of the story of the children of Tuam. She is not a professional historian, but has been given the title of Ireland's most famous historian ever.
The credibility of those making such presentations, and of those who gave Catherine Corliss a platform to share her account of what happened in Tuam, has been called into question as a result of such actions. Few, if any, of these organizations have disputed her testimony regarding such matters. No questions about her lack of knowledge of health issues were asked by the Irish Red Cross, who presented her with a Lifetime Achievement Award in 2021.
Prior to the awards presentation ceremony in Trinity College in Dublin on Friday, December the 7th, 2018, Trinity Long Room Hub hosted an event, In Conversation with Catherine Corliss. Everyone in the room gave the guest speaker a standing ovation, and she was not questioned by anyone about making statements that she knew to be false.
We know now they died from terrible causes, a lot of it coming up in the death certs, says Marasmus. Now that is starvation, and I would believe the babies were just neglected, and if they were ill, I doubt there was any fuss made over them.
Now, Catherine Corliss set out to get the names of all the children that were buried in the children's cemetery, which was once attached to the home. The home is now demolished, but the cemetery is still there. So she gathered together all the death certificates, and she came up with a figure of 796. On 2% of those death certificates was the term marasmus, which Catherine Corliss excitedly thought was evidence of starvation. Now that allegation was taken by the Commission of Investigation and investigated fully. They brought it to medical experts and they asked them, was that evidence of starvation? And the medical expert said it wasn't. It was a general term used when the gut was unable to absorb nutrients despite the adequate intake of food. Consequently, throughout the report, any time marasmus is mentioned, it's also called malabsorption, because that's what it was. It is not evidence of murder. Now, I managed to get this. I got the same 796 death certificates that Catherine Corliss has, and I've gone through them. And I'll tell you, she didn't reveal an awful lot to the public. She kept certain pertinent facts from the public. Number one, 12% of the deaths of her 796 were children who were born to married parents. She has never revealed that in public. Never.
But in spite of a disclaimer by the Commission of Investigation that marasmus is not an indication that the children of Tuam were starved to death, which was published 30 October, 2020, Catherine Corliss and others have continued to insist that marasmus is another word for starvation. A television production by Ireland's national broadcaster RTÉ, in collaboration with ITV and others, which first aired in November 2021 and is still readily available to be viewed on more than one internet channel worldwide, made very little attempt to show a factual interpretation of events, and has accused those running that home of very serious crimes, including the murder of hundreds of children by starving them to death for profit. The BAFTA award-winning documentary, The Missing Children, not only called into question the standards required to win such a prestigious award, but it also set a new low in Irish broadcasting standards.
The mother and baby homes, they were profitable institutions because they were paid a capitation fee per child, and the more they starved the child, the more they ensured that the child lived in rags and was kept in the cold, the more money they made. There is no recorded evidence of them telling on paper or in actual reality about the extreme abuse that they had suffered. Neither Dr. Maeve O'Rourke nor any other person in the Missing Children documentary or anywhere else can present any evidence of the veracity of this statement. With the exception of one person, none of the other survivors have much memory of being in the Tuam Children's Home. Some of their shared memories, such as arriving at and departing from school 10 minutes before and after the other children, are the shared memories of Catherine Corliss.
And the BAFTA goes to The Missing Children.
In spite of a disclaimer by the Commission of Investigation that marasmus is not an indication that the children of Tuam were starved to death, which was published 30 October, 2020, Catherine Corliss and others have continued to insist that marasmus is another word for starvation.
Babies have been thrown in a sewage tank. I think we have to start with the fact that it's a crime scene and we need to know what happened.
In the autumn of 2023, Annette Mackay was one of those appointed as a member of a 6-person team that will support Daniel McSweeney, the Director of Authorized Intervention, on the advisory board that is in charge of overseeing excavation at the former children's home at Tuam.
This is my sister's death certificate. And then it gets really murky. So, Mary Margaret, whooping cough, cardiac failure, certified. Why did my sister die of a treatable disease, whooping cough? Why would a baby die of whooping cough? Why did some babies die of heart failure? Why did babies die of malnutrition? How is this happening?
Mary Margaret O'Connor, Annette Mackay's younger sister, tragically passed away at just 6 months old on June 9, 1943. Her death was not an isolated incident, but part of a larger tragedy, a whooping cough epidemic that took many lives during a time of war and extreme hardship. However, Annette Mackay's recent appearances across various media platforms may give the impression that these events are more recent and that her sister was the sole victim. This is not accurate, as the epidemic occurred many years ago and claimed numerous lives.
While Catherine Corliss and other sources often claim that malnutrition was the cause of death for many children at the children's home in Tuam, the reports provided in the Commission of Investigation's 5th interim report and final report do not mention malnutrition in great detail. There is no record of it happening in St. Mary's home in Tuam.
In the Missing Children documentary, Catherine Corliss has, without any shred of proof, accused the Bon Secours nuns of Tuam of falsifying death certificates for their own sinister agendas.
When I saw the death cert, something struck me. The reasons for death seemed to be in more or less blocks. You would get measles, 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 etc., etc. It was almost like putting something down for the sake of it.
As a researcher, Catherine Corliss should have been aware of the fact that a few weeks after the health inspector's visit to Tuam in 1947, a measles outbreak occurred in the children's home. One of the victims of this epidemic was John Desmond Dolan, the brother of Anna Corrigan. He was not the only casualty of this outbreak.
Although Anna Corrigan has stated on numerous occasions that her brother, John Desmond Dolan, was purposefully starved to death, she has never shown any proof to support her claims. The document that Anna Corrigan is holding up lists her mother Bridget's health as normal, but it makes no mention of her brother John Desmond Dolan's health, despite the fact that he was a full-term baby. The fact that his birth was reported as normal suggests that there were probably no issues during his actual delivery. Anna Corrigan's discovery that her brother was labeled a congenital idiot in the official death report has sparked her outrage. She has taken this matter to the Irish police force. However, a detailed examination of the death list reveals a different narrative. Despite her assertions and public displays of anger across various media platforms, John Desmond Dolan is not the only one characterized in this manner.
In the 1940s, terms like congenital idiot were used in medical and legal contexts to describe certain conditions. The term was used to describe a condition, not necessarily to insult or belittle someone. However, it's important to note that language evolves over time, and what might not have been considered offensive in the past can be seen as highly offensive and inappropriate today.
Julia Carter Devani was resident in St. Mary's Children's Home from the age of 9 and later worked as a domestic servant there until it closed in 1961, from which time she worked as a gardener at the Grove Hospital in Tuam. At some period in the late 1970s or early 1980s, Julia's memories of the home was recorded on tape by a local woman, Rebecca Mill Lane, known as Rebby or Rabby.
If you did listen to all the tapes like I did, I transcribed every single word that Julia Devani said. It took me days upon end. My transcript is every word that Julia said.
Catherine Corliss transcribed these recordings for posterity and on occasions makes references to these memories, but does not always quote them truthfully.
A statement made by Catherine Corliss in a clip from Black Tabby's movie, The Eighth, which was published on YouTube on October 24, 2020, was not only incorrect, it was malicious and contrary to what Julia Carter Devani had said. These words by Julia Carter Devani were posted online at 22:07 on December 26, 2015, author Alison O'Reilly for Sunday's Irish Mail. On March 6, 2017, they were reprinted on LinkedIn. They were also made public on January 12, 2021 in Chapter 15, Section 15.154 of the Commission of Investigation into Mother and Baby Homes final report.
With the nuns' regard, the regard treat them as kind of sinners. No, they did not. Oh, no, they didn't. There's no condemnation. Oh, no, Rebbe. In fact, it was very, very nice to them. Never casted anything up to them or said anything like that hard to them at all. Oh, no, never. Oh, never slandered them in sinners at all. They didn't just nail an egg over them or anything like that. Oh, no.
Julia Devani Carter's description of the amount of garden produce grown at St. Mary's Children's Home, as published on Catherine Corliss' own Facebook page, does not match the description of the same garden produce that Catherine Corliss quotes at every given opportunity.
According to the inspector's report of 1947, so often quoted by Catherine Corliss and by others, there were 333 residents in the home in April of 1947, without counting the nuns and staff members. As someone who is familiar with life on a farm, Catherine Corliss would be well aware that the food grown in the home garden would not be sufficient to feed so many for very long, but this does not prevent her from giving her own interpretation of this fact, on every platform willing to hear her side of the story, without quibble or question.
Although spoken here by a voice-over artist, these are the actual words spoken by Kaylin Hogan on the Missing Children documentary.
These children were kept in this institution without any of the normal care that children would be given. The concerns that were raised by inspectors who visited Tuam and described the children as pot-bellied and as emaciated were clearly not taken seriously, and no action was taken to improve the conditions, as the death rates continued to be high. Disproportionately high for children within these institutions.
While Kaylin Hogan suggests that there were multiple cases of pot-bellied children in the home, Miss Alice Litster, the Department of Health Inspector, pointed out in the inspector's report of April 1947 that there were several cases of emaciated children, but only one 7-month-old boy was classified as pot-bellied. Nestled in the quiet outskirts of Dundalk in Ireland, A nursing home provides a haven for the senior members of the community. Each resident is allocated their own private accommodation, complete with an ensuite shower, toilet, and a door intended to ensure seclusion from the other residents. Yet, in the face of a deadly virus outbreak, these locked doors were insufficient as a barrier. This was tragically demonstrated when at least 23 residents of Dalgin House were affected during the first wave of the COVID pandemic in 2020. Considering that the advanced medical expertise and care of the 21st century were unable to provide protection during an epidemic, it raises questions about the survival chances of those residing in Tuam Children's Home in the early part of the 20th century. One of the most powerful theatrical performances ever witnessed in Ireland was not one by a professional actor in a professional theatre. A speech by a government minister in a government building was so convincing that it changed the course of Irish history and fueled a lucrative black market where many are still profiting by the deaths of hundreds of young Irish children who died from natural causes in a children's home more than half a century ago.
Today is about remembering and respecting the dignity of the children who lived their short lives in this home. We will honor their memory and make sure that we take the right actions now to treat their remains appropriately.
The words were few, but the effects were devastating. The trickle of hate that was constantly flowing turned once again into a raging torrent. That day, the 3rd of March 2017, was not, nor would it ever be, about remembering or respecting the dignity of the lost children of Tuam.
In 2016, a team of specialist archaeologists was appointed by the Commission of Investigation to conduct a test excavation at the site of the children's burial ground. A statement was made that the site works would begin on the 1st of October and would last for approximately 5 weeks. In the words of Dr. Linda Lynch, a member of the team, the identification of the human remains was all done visually from the surface of the chambers. So it involved taking literally hundreds and hundreds of photographs. Some of those photographs were published in the 5th interim report by the Commission, with a few of them heavily redacted and showing very little of what they were meant to portray, but they did show another vital part of the story that was not redacted. Those images shown in public by the Commission were dated as having been taken on or before the 15th of December 2016. Those images also show that the Commission of Investigation was already informed that significant quantities of human remains had been found at the children's graveyard several months before it claimed to have been shocked by the discovery. Although this team had finished their work by December 2016, in January of 2017 the Commission of Investigation further announced that this excavation will be continued for a further 2 to 3 weeks starting on the 30th of January 2017.
So, why were legitimate children being murdered along with illegitimate children if it was only a hatred of illegitimate children? Now the story begins to unravel when you start to ask pertinent questions and when you bring in expert knowledge. Now, Catherine Corris is not an expert. She says herself she was only a housewife. She worked as a secretary before she got married. So she's not to blame for propagating this lie. It's excitable nonsense that anybody could fall into. It's one of the hazards of the trade of history. The big problem is that when that lie was posited, that the experts should have gone on to the news organisations and told them that it was a lie. Had that happened, the story would have fallen flat. It would not have got the legs it got. And maybe there's a reason why the media didn't want it to fall flat and were happy to propagate the lie, in that this was selling newspapers, this was taking up broadcast hours, this was content that was getting everyone excited, getting everyone angry. And that sells newspapers, that makes money for them. But what does that say about their attitude towards you, the consumer? If they're going to tell you lies, get you excited with lies, do they have your best interest at heart? The answer to that is completely, categorically, no. The Irish media have only their own interests at heart, and they don't care who they hurt or who they trample into the ground, as long as they can make money for themselves. That's a sad fact, and that's one of the main reasons why we have this scandal.
On Monday, 13th of February 2017, Irish political party Sinn Féin, which translates as We Ourselves, announced that it had launched its motion of no confidence in the government over its handling of allegations against Garda whistleblower Maurice McCabe. This motion of no confidence, which could have resulted in the collapse of the Irish government, was only defeated by 5 votes. The ongoing series of investigations and tribunals resulted in the resignations of Garda Commissioner Martin Callanan and Minister for Justice Alan Shatter. In February 2017, there were calls for Catherine Zappone to resign. Published by the Irish Examiner online on Saturday the 11th of February 2017. Ms. Zappone is facing mounting questions about why she did not tell cabinet colleagues about a Tussler file with false child sex abuse allegations against Sergeant McCabe. An RTE online report, updated on Friday, 24th February 2017, stated that the Minister for Children and Youth Affairs, Catherine Zappone, has met the board of Tussler for the first time since the Sergeant Maurice McCabe controversy. Speaking after the meeting, which was held in Cork, the minister said that she accepted that the public's trust in the agency has suffered and that needs to be restored.
On the 3rd of March 2017, Catherine Zappone announced to the world that a significant number of human remains had been found in a spot at Tuam, County Galway, that had been known for many years as being a children's graveyard. Urged on by politicians and by yet another media frenzy, which was similar to the outburst of 2014, the fickle public turned its anger and hatred which had been building up against Tussler and directed it once again at the nuns of Tuam and at the Catholic Church.
Today is about remembering and respecting the dignity of the children who lived their short lives in this home. We will honor their memory and make sure that we take the right actions now to treat their remains appropriately.
On the 3rd of March 2017, Catherine Zappa and the Irish Minister for Children and Youth Affairs successfully evoked the memory of hundreds of innocent little Irish children who died prematurely in County Galway to hold on to her powerful position in the Irish government.
In the beginning, a dream was born, to raise a monument to celebrate the lives of little children who never had a chance to live. But with the passing of time, the monument that had been forged by that dream, the plaques that had been created with love from many people, still lie in storage, waiting for a day that may never come. The legacy of love has turned to a legacy of hate, but the flame has not yet been extinguished. The dream still burns with a fire that will never die.